And you're on.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we're on the doorstep of a let's start over.
Okay.
I blinded myself. Ooh, just a moment here.
Yeah.
Your bulb's bright.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm still seeing spots. Okay, let's start over. Okay, ready?
Hit it.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're on a doorstep of a historic moment. Something that's never been happened before in our history, or in fact, never in anyone's history. This isn't a single event, but it's a condition or a situation that's starting to unfold, and it's getting bigger every day. As a nation and as individuals, it has dramatic implications for the entire nations for the next 30 to 50 years. Now you're wondering what I'm talking about, and it may surprise you. But what I'm talking about is retirement. You're probably saying, what am I talking about retirement? Well, what I'm talking about is it's the largest generation of people born anywhere in the history of this planet. You may be thinking, well, it's nothing new, and you may be right. But this is the first time we've had over 70 million retirees all at once retire into this system. And when you think about it, is Social Security fully funded? Is Medicare fully funded? Constantly we're hearing about shortfalls in both of those systems. So you think about historically, especially with Social Security where it started, the original retirement age was set at 65. But the average lifespan when it was set at 65 was 62. So they never expected this number of people to actually use it. And most people in this country have not saved enough money to last them the 30 years. Now, I'm not saying this to scare you, because someone has to tell you the truth. So what I'm here to do is to give you the tools and the options and the ability to control your own future so you can have a successful retirement. But also, there's another issue. Let me ask you, what is this? Yeah, it's $1, but it's something else. What else is it? Well, this represents your retirement, your 401k, all the retirement plans and your pension, and all the money you've saved over the decades to prepare for this event called retirement. Except the issue here is Uncle Sam wants their piece. Medicare wants their piece. How about the kids move home and they want their piece early? I have 6 kids, it's happened. Now, take a look at this small piece here. Is this all you want to be left with? I didn't think so. And that's the other reason we're here today. My name is John Krajnik and I'm from Normandy Financial. And for the what we're going to do is we're going to educate and illustrate and answer some questions on retirement. Just to let you know, there's an evaluation form in your folder, and I would like you to fill that out and return it at the end of this session. We really appreciate your cooperation in this matter. So how do you envision retirement? And if you take a look at this slide, they talk about hobbies, travel, vacation home, the normal luxury things that people do. But there's a million other activities that you could do during this phase. Some people want to do charitable work. Some people just want to sit home and relax. But it is really, retirement's a great thing, and it can be your chance to create joy and have explorations for a fulfilling life, if you plan for it. So, what's your vision? Again, we talk about hobbies, travels, vacation homes, but what is your vision? Retirement is a time of changing times. It's you at your helm. If you take a look at that, where do you want to start when you're going on retirement? You know, you have decisions to make. There are things that you'll need to do, but where do you want to start? Well, what happens when you retire? The rules are different, and they're really individual rules. One of the best clients I had worked for GE for 35 years, and they offered him an early retirement package. He quit, found hobbies to do around the house and things to do, and he never looked back at work. Now, other people, they view retirement as an opening to their next career. Other people want to hold up a golfing lifestyle, want to go do other things, but really what it comes down to is, what do you really want to do, and how are you going to do it? But here's what the whole thing is when you're taking a look at the thing. The one big change when you move into retirement is you're going to be going from accumulating assets to withdrawing assets. So there's a big importance in generating income in retirement and have it customized for you so you can meet those goals that you decide on. You need to protect your income and your assets for many years. Now let's talk about this many years. You take a look at this graph here. You know, you hear people talking about, well, the average age in the United States of a female or a male is age 78 and a female is age 82. But one thing about those statistics is they include infant mortality. You know, if you remove infant mortality and just say at age 65, the average lifespan, if you look, of a man, half of us live to 85. And an additional 35% of males live to 90. And women, it's even longer. 65% live to age 85, and almost half live to age 90. So, you can look at it that there is at least a 40% chance that one of you is going to make it past 90. And there's a probability both of you will. So, what we're going to look at is then 5 action items to chart your course. And here they're listed here, but we're going to start with number 1, which is size up your current situation and sources of income. You'll probably need at least 70 to 80% of your pre-retirement to live comfortably in retirement, and you've got to account for inflation. Think about this. I mean, a lot of people look at retirement and they say, well, you know, I'm not going to have a car to go to work. I'm not going to have all the clothes that I need for work, and my expenses are being much less. My kids are out of the house, and I shouldn't need as much. Well, it comes down to it is you have certain things that are part of your lifestyle. Some people think of their house as their primary nest egg, but do you really want to move to a smaller place in retirement? You may not, but you know, if you belong to a country club, if you belong to a boating club, fishing club, do you really want to give those things up in retirement? And then the second thing too is we've got to account for inflation too. But there's also even another 1,000-pound gorilla in this, but we'll talk about that later. let's look at the impact of inflation. So say you have $1 million today. And then in 5 years, that $1 million will only buy $820,000 worth of goods. And we're talking about 4% inflation rate. 10 years later, the buying power of that $1 million is only $680,000. In 15 years, your buying power is almost cut in half. And in 20 years, it's less than half. And we were talking about 20 years on that previous slide. Now, what does that mean? Well, let's take a look at some historical numbers. Let me just take a look at them here. Say the average price of a car in 1998 was $20,000. Well, today, last year it was $35,000, almost 36. Candy bar in 1998 was 70 cents. Today it's 50 cents. Carton of eggs, it's $1.05. Now it's $1.60. A gallon of gas, hard to believe, but it was $1 a gallon in 1998, and we're now paying around $2.70. You get the picture. As prices go up, the value of the money goes down, and your money just doesn't cover as much stuff. So let's take a look at your primary sources of retirement income. Personal savings and investments, Social Security, possibly some part-time work in retirement, and a pension. Let's take this and let's imagine all of these sources as buckets filled with money that you can access during retirement. First bucket is a pension. Second bucket is part-time work. Third bucket is Social Security. And the fourth bucket is your investments, your savings. Well, pensions are like unicorns. You know, in 1980, 60% of companies and people provided pensions. Today it's under 4%. So very few people have pensions anymore. You know, now what we have is a 401k plan, which is a contribution plan. Well, how many people have an old-fashioned pension with their 401k today? And how many of you actually have benefits with those pensions, like medical benefits? As you can see, very few have it. And the client I talked about earlier who left GE and got an early retirement package and never looked back, well, he has his pension, of course, but 2 years ago GE decided to eliminate the medical benefits for retirees, so his expenses went up dramatically 2 years ago. So, if you have a pension, it's a great benefit, but let's look at the next bucket. Let's talk about working in retirement. Most people say that they would expect to work to pay for in retirement, but in reality, very few actually do. What's the challenge with working in employment? Well, sometimes the part-time jobs you might be interested in, just you can't find them. Another thing is, as you get older, you may have more health problems, and you really won't be able to work. One example of this is, I have a friend who worked at Firestone, now Bridgestone, for decades. And he really likes to work. He did end up retiring, but he did part-time jobs, really construction jobs almost for fun and work, but because he worked at such a dangerous job for so many years, he developed COPD, and he struggles now with just day-to-day things. So you just don't know if this will really get you through retirement, you know, working a part-time job. Sorry here, hold on. I clicked the button here. Okay. So, we can probably say that this probably isn't the main source of income. Social Security. Well, this is a very large part of most people's retirement plan, and it really helps to understand the basics. As we mentioned before, the original retirement age was set at 65 when people lived 62. Currently, the retirement age is 66 or 67, but people are living at least into their mid to late 80s, probably into their early 90s. So, and also depending on how you collect it, you'll get more or less. If you collect it early, you'll get less. If you collect it later, you'll get more. If you wait till the maximum age where you get the maximum benefit, you'll actually get up to 32% extra money by waiting. And there's some planning that you can do to make this work better. An easier visual is this. As you can see, as you start at 62, you get 75% of your benefits, and you can go up to 132 if you wait till age 70. There's some significant planning we can do with this to try to maximize what you'll get in lifetime. And this is a visual, a simple visual on how you, by where you take your retirement at early, full, assuming 66 is your full, and 70, what your lifetimes returns will be based on how long you live. So based on family history, based on your current situation, how we can deal with the taxes, because Social Security can be taxed now. There are different things you can do to maximize your returns in retirement. So, for sake of simplicity, we're going to get rid of the pension and the part-time work. Pension applies to few, and the part-time work is not very likely. So we're going to focus on these two buckets. So that leaves us with looking at, we talked about Social Security, and that really is specialized on your current situation, and if you meet with me, we can just start discussing this and how we can maximize this, but this leaves us with investments. There's a few key questions in there. How much is in your bucket? That includes all your IRAs, your 401k, bank accounts, real estate, basically your entire net worth. Then, what we need to do is look at where these assets are. Are they taxable? Are they not taxable? Are they tax-free? How much can be used to generate income? You know, house is part of your financial situation, but you really couldn't produce income off it unless you wanted to take in boarders. But you may have a vacation home where you use it part of the year, and other parts of the year it could be used for income. Now, we have to understand your assets. Are they growing? Are they safe? Are they diversified for retirement? Again, the accumulation versus the distribution phase. So, to get a clear picture of your assets and how they're placed, we can start asking these questions. It's like, how much income can I safely take? How long will my money last? What about unforeseen circumstances? So, personal savings and investments come in two general categories. Tax deferred. Things like employee-sponsored plans. 401ks are the most common. Any IRAs you have. Any annuities you have. Then the others are stocks, the taxable. The stocks, bonds, cash alternatives, and mutual funds. But in reality, there's a third class that this presentation doesn't talk about, but it's the tax-free. And we'll talk about tax-free later. So, things you have to understand is the distribution rules. In the case of IRAs and 401ks and any employee-sponsored plan, there are different rules. And if you understand them, you'll be able to avoid paying unnecessary taxes and penalties from withdrawals. The big one is the age 59 and a half rule. There are some exceptions to this, so what that means is the 59 and a half rule, if you have a deferred plan like an IRA or 401k, if you take the money before age 59 and a half, you pay regular taxes on it, but there's an additional 10% penalty to those taxes. And then there are some exceptions to this, and it's death or permanent disability, so if you die, your heirs don't have to pay the tax, or if you're permanently disabled. In the case of 401ks and benefit plans, if you separate from service from your company at age 55 or older, there's a way of doing what's called a periodic withdrawal, or if you have qualified medical expenses. And some exceptions for IRAs are for college, first-time home purchase, and there's this thing called a 72T for periodic withdrawals, where you can agree to take money over a certain period, and you will avoid the 10% penalty. But once you start that, you pretty much have to keep taking the money out. So here's the distribution for the penalty-free distribution. It's a 9, say at age 50 you start taking. So until you get to 59 and a half, you got to take out so much every year. If you start it, you can't stop it. 56, 5-year, age 58, goes on. So let's just skip a few things here. Now, let's now talk about that third type of retirement saving that wasn't listed earlier. It's the tax-free type. There are two basic ways of doing income tax-free. One is a Roth IRA, and the other is life insurance. Now let's just talk about the Roth IRA first. You know, Roths can be very powerful. The key to this, that it is truly a tax-free tax-free qualified distribution. And you say truly, now what do I mean by truly? Well, you know, there are other tax-free investments like muni bonds or tax advantage like treasury bonds, but those actually get to go into accountant mode for a second. They get added to your AGI, and then they can create taxable situations and other things. Simply put, they're tax-free, but they can actually make your Social Security taxable. So they're not as tax-free as these two. Now, the other thing is you're going like, well, I can only put approximately $7,000 into a Roth every year. Well, that's true, but you can recharacterize any of your 401k or your IRA. There's ways of recharacterizing them so you convert them into tax-free benefits. There are also eligibility requirements, and there are ways around those, though you cannot work around the contribution requirements. So, now the advantage here of life insurance. It has all of those same advantages of a Roth IRA, plus it has these other advantages. The distributions, if done properly from a life insurance, are just as tax-free. They require no lifetime distributions like a Roth, but there's no income eligibility requirements. As an advantage, you can also deal with long-term care issues. A lot of people are on the assumption that if you get into retirement that Medicare will cover long-term care. That's not true. And the structure of a life insurance policy actually can create significantly better performance than a Roth. Now you're asking yourself, why? How is this? You know, I had life insurance. I had it to protect my house, protect my kids. The kids are gone. I've got my retirement savings. Why do I need this life insurance again? Well, you got to remember, this is not your old insurance policy to protect your family in case you're gone. It's actually a structure that gives you many benefits plus the greatest tax exclusion that's really legally allowed by law. It's kind of, has any of you ever heard of Ed Slott and seen him on PBS and how he talks about tax planning and retirement? Well, to quote Ed Swat, he said that the life insurance is the biggest gift. The life insurance tax exclusions are the biggest gift that the IRS has ever given people. And there's a lot of ways to take advantage of this. And if it's suitable for you, with your situation, it makes a ton of sense. Also, when you have policies, IRAs, when you have savings accounts, don't forget to name your beneficiary. And you can change your beneficiaries at any time, choose primary and contingents, keep your paperwork in order. One thing we'll like to talk about is, have you updated your beneficiaries lately? There are many examples where people had IRAs and 401ks, went through a divorce, and they didn't update those beneficiaries, and even if their wills and trusts had new beneficiaries, a couple of years ago, Supreme Court ruled that the beneficiaries on your account supersede even trusts. So sometimes people have gotten divorced, they had never updated their beneficiaries on the accounts, they've died, and suddenly their hated ex-wife is getting all their money. Or other examples where their children have been excluded from benefits. Again, this is very important. So, what you need to do too is develop an investment strategy. Asset allocation. When you just look at all the different assets you can diversify in, it's good to have a great diversification. Now, I'm not even just talking about diversification between bonds, stocks, mutual funds. We have annuities, we have insurance, we have other vehicles that you can diversify with that will lower your risk in retirement and make you more likely to get to that endpoint liquid. Here's some samples. You can have bonds, stocks, cash, and alternatives for a conservative investor. Here's another example for an aggressive investor. And you can just see the income producing are turned down and the risk are turned up based on what you're comfortable with and what point you are in your retirement. So the other thing is it's good to choose a well-diversified mix of investments and financial vehicles. So let's talk a little bit more about this and explain why this is, especially the key when you get into retirement. And one of the things that's really important is understanding the sequence of returns. Now, if you take a look here, when your money performs well, is going to be important is how well your money performs. So you can have total returns and total returns at different times. And you may be kind of questioning that. Because in pre-retirement, it really doesn't matter. You can have market ups, market downs. If you can hold through the downs, in the long run, it doesn't matter. But in retirement, this can actually be something critical. Let's show you. Okay, let's take a look at the pre-retirement, which most of you are probably quite familiar with. So you take $100,000 in year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5. So we got, say, 40% up the first year, 20, 0, minus 15, and minus 20. So let's look at our returns of this $100,000 portfolio. 140,000, great year. 168, another great year. Well, that happens. That has happened, and we just had one of those recently. So you just look at your total return over the 5 years. With those returns, you ended up with $114,000 over 5 years. Now, let's take it and let's just do the sequence of returns differently. 20, 15, 0, 20, and 40. And that doesn't look so good. That looks even worse. That's still, you're wondering what's going on here and why you're doing what you're doing. But then, when you get to 2 other returns, you end up really at the same place. So the returns end up being the same. It just doesn't matter that much when these returns happen. Now, there's no difference. Now That's the accumulation phase. The ride can be scary, but you end up in the same place. Now, let's talk about after you retire. What's the key difference between pre-retirement and post-retirement with regards to your assets? That's right, you're spending them now, you're relying on them, you're taking money out of them. Or before, you may have been setting them and forgetting it, and you saw that at work. But let's start taking money out of the retirement. So same returns. So 140, income 6,000. You got 134,000. 160, another 6,000. 154. You get the idea. Let's take a look at where we end up. You end up with pulling that $6,000 of income out of your 100,000 or 6%. You end up with 90,384 at the end of the 5 years. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to look at where the bad news came first. So, 80,000, but you're taking 6,000 out. Suddenly you're left with 74. And that 74 goes down to 62.9. You're taking that same 6,000 out. Suddenly you're at 56.9. Now this year, you're still down because you're taking the 6,000 out, and you're basically have lost half your principal. Now we're getting the 20% back. We're only getting the 20% on half the money. And even if you get a really good year, you're still much lower than you were before. Remember when we had the good sequence? How much do you remember? How much we ended up with? Well, it was the 90,000. Now we only have 71,000. All we did was flip the sequence of returns. So, in accumulation, the sequence of return matter or don't matter. But in retirement, do they matter or no, don't matter? And that point there is, how would you feel being there? Half your money's gone and you're only 2 years into retirement. Now, I don't want to scare you on that, but this is why this diversification makes a lot of sense. One other thing is we talk about tax-exempt investing. This is just a quick look that, you know, if you're in a high income bracket and you get the tax-exempt yield depending on your tax bracket, your effective return, including taxes, goes up significantly. These can be very good,